What else? Before he got out of the car, I remarked to him it was quite close, the front wheel, and he said it was all right. You observed what? The back of the front wheel was headed to the curb, and I thought it was out cut in too much. Never mind what you thought. You mean by that the front wheel was turned so that the rear of it was toward the curb stone more than the front of it was? Yes, sir. Was it very much turned in or just a little bit? It was turned in quite a bit. Did you see your father get out of the car then? I did. Then you met your father on the sidewalk with your mother, is that correct? Yes. Where were you standing when you got out of the car? I was standing up in the front. Did you go near the back at all? I looked back then. I had to put my hand in the front door and put it on the little lever. You pushed up the button or lock on the inside of the rear door, is that it? Yes, sir. Did you look at the lock at the car at all at that time? No, sir, I did not. Were there any cars in front of you or your father's car as you parked it? Yes, there were cuts almost up to the corner. Were there any cars in back of your father's car as you pulled up there? No, sir. Now, when you and your mother met your father on the sidewalk, what did you do? Where did you go? We went into the restaurant. Now, do you recall what time that was? Yes, it was 7 o'clock. How do you fix the time? Because in this restaurant there was a clock, and I mentioned to my father we would have plenty of time. Never mind what you mentioned to your father, just tell the jury how you fixed the time. I saw the clock in the restaurant said 7 o'clock. Now, did you dine in this restaurant? Yes, we did. Do you recall about what time you came out of that restaurant? I do, because I looked at the clock again and it was 7:15. Where did you go when you came out of the restaurant? My mother wanted to get some things in the drugstore. Where did you go? You are not allowed to tell what took place between you and your mother. Went to the drugstore. Where in that drugstore? Right at the restaurant. Did your father go with you? Yes, he did. How long were you in the drugstore? About 5 minutes. Then you came out? Yes, sir. So you saw your car there? No, the car was not there. You are the wife of Charles Allen, the defendant in this action? Yes. Do you recall the 10th day of October 1933? Yes. And do you recall the late afternoon and evening of that day? Yes. And do you recall where you were around 6 o'clock that day? Yes. Where? I was in my husband's office at 60th Street and Broadway. And who was with you? My daughter, Mrs. Burke, who just testified before you. She was not married then. Do you recall leaving your husband's office that evening? Yes. About what time was that? Shortly after 6. Who was there that left that time? My daughter and my husband. And yourself? Yes. Did you leave by automobile? My husband's car. That is the car that was involved in this accident? Yes. Now, do you recall where you went when you left the office? Yes, we went up to a restaurant. You drove up to the restaurant, your husband did rather? Yes. Where were you sitting in the car? I was in the back of the car. On which side? On the far side. Was that a closed car or an open car? Closed car.
That was a pretty quick nap.
I don't know, how long was I sleeping?
Maybe.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh,